Are you ready?
Power.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
I'm building an alliance.
God bless the internet.
Okay, let's party.
It's showtime.
It's time for the Alliance Guys podcast with your hosts Kevin Frazier, Jaden, DKM, and J. Cal.
You know, it would be great if I would remember to take this thing down every time. Hey, it's the logo. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is J. Cal. With me, of course, is my good old pal, my friend, my confidant, the one, the only, Mr. DKM. DK, how are you this evening?
Why me?
Why me? Well, obviously, you watched Power this week. And
I did.
If you guys haven't watched it yet, maybe don't bother. I know the chat wants to know. The chat wants to know, what am I drinking tonight? And it is the sparkling ice, the cranberry frost. This is the limited edition holiday season of the sparkling ice. If you didn't get yours yet, they make it available at Costco and all of your favorite grocery stores. Mine's at Stater Brothers, but maybe you shop at Kroger's, or maybe you shop at one of the other places. I don't know. Refreshing. The cranberry gets you right here. Right here.
I drink, plain boring water.
Yeah, I have plain boring water in this guy too. I try to stay well hydrated. And then Media M5 says you can go to Aldi and get your frost drink. It's the same as ice. I also did some of the Rock's Zoa energy drink today.
Intentionally?
Yeah, it's actually not bad. I highly recommend it. Last week or Tuesday on the pre-party, we spent a lot of time talking about energy drinks, coffee, tea, green tea. So it's only fitting that we continue that conversation onto the Alliance Guys podcast as well.
I drink hot tea, primarily English breakfast, Irish breakfast, Earl Grey, and Lady Grey.
I think I would like to start getting into tea.
Yorkshire Gold's a little strong for me.
What is?
Yorkshire Gold.
Okay. I think I need to get into drinking tea. A lot of people said it would help me with my current ailments, which seems to be a nagging cough that won't go away. Just warning you guys now, if you hear me mute myself or go into a coughing fit, I'm going to be okay. I'm just a little under the weather. Excuse me. So right off the bat, I told them that you guys, that DK wasn't around because you were out yelling at the neighborhood's children to get off your lawn. And that made Luthes's grumpy old DMK pop
DMK.
As well. What did I say?
DMK?
DMK. Wow. Maybe I had a stroke just now. Grumpy old DKM pop, which also he posted. Now I can't get the vision of DKM cutting promos on neighborhood kids out of my head.
Nor should you.
Media M5 wants to remind you to smile tonight, DK. Don't you know that when you smile, the whole world smiles with you?
think when I smile, the whole world worries.
See, that means you're plotting something. If you didn't hear earlier, I was on Twitter and I said that I'm thinking about doing a MCU podcast, and I had a couple of enablers say that I should. Jeremy says I should go for it, and so did Big Chris Dog, although he's not in the chat right now.
MCU.
What's that? Yeah, I already know my sign off. It'll be MCU later.
Okay, so I'm not watching it then.
Jeremy says that he's protesting all episodes of Velvet After Dark. I mean, it's because you're protesting, Jeremy, that Velvet Sky was wearing a sweater. So I'm blaming that on you, pal. And
it doesn't matter what she's wearing. She was still stupid.
I will talk to you about that, Media M5. That might be something we do as maybe an MCU wrestling podcast. I don't know. I just, the thought occurred to me because I'm always talking about MCU with my friends and people online. And I'm like, there's three things that besides my family and my business, there's three things that I'm passionate about: pro wrestling, Angels baseball.
How'd they do this year?
Yeah, not great. Not great.
I can't wait till next year when I get a cheer for the Rangers again.
Well, you said that for years that they needed to have some changes in the front office. They finally got some, so I'm good with that.
They'll probably still suck, but at least I can cheer for them.
So yeah, I got that. And Jag VPW, just to kind of bring it back to the NWA, he says, after the shit show NWA USA, the slobbering praise of that piece of trash Tyrus, and their turn of Velvet After Dark, it's so hard to be a fan of the NWA. You're speaking to the choir, pal. I mean, I wish I had something kind to say. I wish there was like a silver lining here. Now, I mean, some of these matches at the pay-per-view are lining up to be good to decent. DK, what match are you looking forward to the most at the pay-per-view? We're going to be there live. I got your ticket.
Yeah, no, I just got to get the hotel. It'll be fun. Might be sleeping in my car in New Orleans. Let me see, where am I? What am I looking forward to the most? That's kind of a trick question. And I'll be honest, none of the matches just overly excite me. I suppose I'm kind of looking forward to the women's match because, at least they all got talent. So, and the women's matches have been stealing the shows, even if it is a three-way. Notice the world title and world heavyweight title and world women's title are both three-ways. Billy. But it'd also be interesting to see if they use this as an opportunity to switch the title.
Yeah.
I'm a little curious, especially since they can switch the title and not have Camille lose. I'm not saying she wouldn't. I'm just saying, I could see them doing that type of stupid thing.
I think you just predicted the end result. Camille loses the title without being pinned, whether it be Kylan pinning Chelsea or Chelsea pinning Kylan. That certainly would have some, you would have some wiggle room with Camille not looking bad, if she didn't get pinned. So
I would probably pick Chelsea Green
to win.
I actually like her. I'm not the biggest fan of her hot mess character anymore. I mean, when it was originally done, they still did it too long, but it was at least an interesting character when she first when they keep going back to it, it loses every line.
Well, when they rehash all these old Impact gimmicks, that's what loses me. It's like I kind of feel like at this point the NWA is just an offshoot of Impact.
Well, it also shows you don't have anything original to think of.
This is true. I mean, we even got it on Tuesday night. We finally got a beautiful people reunion. You know, they literally put them together on camera for the first time. You know, for longer than 3 seconds, and it was not great.
No, it wasn't.
I
don't know who to blame for it, but I mean, ultimately the buck stops with Billy.
Yeah,
but like,
sure.
I don't know how much control they had over putting it together or not. And suppose you know they're not scripted, so supposedly.
Yeah, well, I that was you, not me. I believe I believe that Billy gives them a loose interpretation of what he wants to happen, and then they just kind of run with it. And apparently, it doesn't look like there's any real filtering or editing after that. Real quick, in our chat, Media M5 says, I'm only interested in Carino versus Richard. That's it. The rest of the card I cannot get into. That's probably one of my favorite matches coming into this, just because I think that'll be a great test for Colby to see where he's at. Davey Richards is going to beat him, but let's see what kind of match Colby could get from him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's someone else said that too, and I don't know that I can 100% agree with it. I mean, I'd like to see. I've never seen Richards live, so I'm interested in that. But I can't say the match itself actually interests me.
The last time I saw Davey Richards live was many, many years ago, and I got to be honest, I thought he was Austin Aries the first time I saw him. No, I'm not trying to be like facetious or anything. I was like,
oh no, I know that you're not, but it's just kind of funny to think about.
I was like, I didn't know Austin Aries was going to be here. That's Davey Richards. Well, who's Davey Richards? Got to censor myself a little bit. Who's that guy? What's he all about? And he was fun. And there was at one point in Southern California, we had this wrestling promotion called Epic. And Epic had one of the most, it was almost like one of those rise and fall like type wrestling promotions, because you had Epic booking some pretty incredible matches. They were the first ones that I saw to book Bryan Danielson, the American Dragon, versus Super Dragon, who at the time was an internet darling. They had matches like with TJ Perkins and Samoa Joe. They used Scrap Iron Adam Pearce, Frankie Kazarian. Basically what you see as a modern day Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, they were that before Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. And the downfall of that company was they had a match scheduled that was going to be Ultimo Dragon versus American Dragon versus Super Dragon. And they never had the venue booked properly. And so the day of, they find out that they have no place to have the show. They don't have the match. And it was serious. Everyone wanted to see that match. It was at the height of the popularity of Danielson and, well, maybe not Danielson, but of Super Dragon. I don't think was ever more over than he was at the moment. And then you were going to throw Ultimo into that match. It would have just been crazy.
Well, probably as in top indie guy before some better fame. It probably was Danielson's, peak there.
Yeah, I mean,
that stage of his career.
And so that same promotion went away and then came back. And this is how carny it was. And I know the promoter, and I still think very highly of him. His name's Gary Yap, and I messaged him just the other day. But they came back and they called themselves Pro Wrestling War. And I was like, oh, what's this? And he swore up and down that he had no connection to it the whole time he was running the show. It was very Vince Russo-esque, very carny. But they put on a lot of great shows too, and that was when I was first introduced to Davey Richards. Getting back to what some of the our friends in the chat are saying, Carlton's relatively new, but I'm glad he's here because he always puts up some good stuff. He says he's looking for Latimer versus EC3 and Draper versus Scion. Do either one of those matches sound appealing to you, DK? Like, this isn't our pay-per-view preview show. We're just talking right now.
I don't trust him on Latimer versus EC3, which is why. I mean, I think Bell to whatever effed up ending they're going to have will probably be good, but I don't trust them not to F up the ending.
Yeah.
And Draper versus Scion, it has potential to be a show stealer, but what makes something a show stealer is it's really not what you're expecting, and it also has the chance to be exactly what we would expect off two guys who, let's face it, aren't upper card guys at this time, at least.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I assume it's going to be a good match. But remember, I'm driving 9 hours.
Yeah.
I'm paying for what? Friday, Saturday, Sunday in a hotel.
At least 3 fill-ups.
At least. And so, this isn't cheap for me.
No.
I mean, I'm doing this more to meet Jay than.
Yeah. I've been saying that since we decided that we're going, is that this is more for me is about meeting this guy right here than actually seeing the wrestling. And I know that sounds really harsh. The wrestling's fine. Like I'm always interested in watching wrestling promotions. I never have been to a what are they called? Wildcat?
Yeah.
I never saw a Wildcat show. I think the world of Luke Hawk. I've heard nothing but good things about Wildcat. I've had friends wrestle for them, including Ruby Rays. So I'm really hopeful that what they bring to the table will add more value to the show, especially the next night. But with that, all that being said, my primary reason for going is so that I can meet DK. And that's just the honest truth. Now, am I going to have fun at the wrestling show? Sure I am. And I wouldn't be surprised if DK and I talk trash about the show the whole time while we're there. We might even record something in between the shows and give our 2 cents on the pay-per-view. And I saw Dave Scooby say something similar. He just said, wrestling is a bonus. Looking forward to seeing friends and eating some food. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a huge seafood guy, but I might be willing to try some gumbo while we're there. And I've met Dave Scooby before, but it's always a good time seeing Dave Scooby. He's a great dude. He's part of the Alliance family. If you guys didn't know, him and Jeremy, Wrestling with the MMA, and NWA Gold all do the podcast on Wednesday. They call it the Other Alliance Guys. And those guys are awesome. If you haven't watched it yet, make it part of your weekly viewing habits. If you can't watch live, you can always watch the replays because it's on YouTube. It's all free. But getting back to some more of the show, I'm looking at this pay-per-view. Dave Scooby brought up the fact that there's no tag team title match listed yet. But he said that the Question Mock versus the Question Mac loser unmasks. You know who the real loser is in that match? All of us who have to watch it.
I think Question Mock versus Question Mac, loser, winner, match participant, even the referee, all have to leave wrestling forever.
I think I'm okay with that. Media M5 brings up that he's interested in EC3 versus Latimer, but only he wants to see Latimer join the Control Your Narrative. That would be an interesting way to take it. And it's a great way to make him heel again. But
how does that work? We already had an angle where Latimer was basically subservient to Camille. So, yeah. Are we going to suddenly forget that relationship and ignore it like wrestling is prone to do? Is there going to be something in there with Camille? Do we really want to see Latimer playing second fiddle to somebody again?
What if?
If you double turn it, I guess, and do like Judgment Day did, where they kick out Edge for Baylor, you're stealing a very recent WWE item. But I mean, I understand people wanting to see that because it sounds cool for the thing, but I don't know what you do with it. I mean, I want to see Latimer grow as a wrestler and see if he can handle the main event spots.
What if, and this is only Jay's booking ideas, right? What if he does join EC3 when it's all said and done, but instead of playing second fiddle to EC3, EC3 is kind of like the manager that gets him that world title shot? Would you hate that, or would you be okay with it?
I'd be okay with it if he stays out of the ring.
Yeah, let's just say.
But I mean, in general, in other words, like you basically have to become a manager.
So you wouldn't want to ever see EC3 wrestle again if he was the guy that was
on a rare
guiding.
occasion.
Okay.
But if he's still wrestling, again, you're in that subservient position, Maybe he's trying to take you to the world title that you're not going to win, but Latimer in my view, Latimer needs to be independent.
All right. Dave Scooby says Latimer needs to be pushed to the moon. Don't forget Camille tossing the towel on Tom versus Aldis match. Yeah, that's still pretty fresh in my memory too. And Jeremy says, I agree. Latimer has played second fiddle long enough. So you do have your supporters on this one, DK. So yeah, I mean, the pay-per-view hasn't really endeared itself to me just yet. The matches that I've seen them make still haven't really pushed me over the edge. It's since we're talking about it, let's go ahead and just talk about it because I can pull up the graphics here. We know that on night number 2 of Revolution Rumble, they've really only announced this matchup, which is Nathan Bradley versus Chuck Divine for the Wildcat Sports Revolution Championship. I don't know the relevancy of the title. I don't know the relevancy of Chuck Divine or Nathan Bradley.
I think that's their second tier title. Yeah,
because I remember at least at some point that Trevor Murdoch had won their main title.
Right.
And
still holds or not.
But then the other part of this show is the Revolution Rumble, which that is actually a gimmick that the Wildcat has put on multiple times in the past. And it's going to be, I imagine, similar to like a Battle Royal / Royal Rumble type thing where they've announced a ton of NWA talent and a ton of Wildcat talent, including Jack Stane, including Crimson, and a lot of other familiar faces. So not really sure what that's going to lead to, but the second night, they haven't been as forthcoming with a card just yet. But we know that coming into hard times, there's some interesting matchups. The pre-show with Crimson and JTG and the Pope versus Smoke and Mirrors and Jack Stane. I'm not really sold on this as being a fun opener, but all right. It is what it is. You're going to have Kerry Morton with his rematch against Homicide for the junior heavyweight title. Now, we just saw this at the 74th anniversary show, so I'm not thrilled to be seeing it again so soon, but again, it is what it is. You got Nick Aldis in a very weird position, very much lower on the undercard, and he'll be taking on Odinson. That should be a fun match. The U.S. tag team titles are on the line. You've got the Fixers taking on the Spectaculars. Again, that could potentially be fun. The women's titles, I think I'm actually looking forward to this one because they had a pretty good match on Power. You guys need to see DK's face real quick. He's just not happy. Misa, Kate, and Maddie challenging Pretty Empowered. Big fan of Ella Envy. I've been very happy with the progression that Kenzie Page has had. And Maddie, I think, is a killer, man. I think Maddie is so underrated in the NWA. I feel like this could be a fun match. Dak Draper.
I feel like in a lot of ways that's going to be the entertaining match of the night.
Yeah.
not like the blowaway match or the show stealer or the fun match.
Yeah.
And I can't say I'm looking forward to it, but I can't say that, I'm dreading it. I mean, I think that's a match that would be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, and just out of curiosity, do you follow NWA Extra at all?
No, I have to be honest. I haven't watched much of any of it.
Well, I don't either, but it seems like every time they're advertising it, 50% of the time it's with the women's tag champions. Yeah. And so I'm just like, I mean, is it primarily about them? If any of you watch it, let me know. What do they do? What's it about? I mean, I'm already being punished watching Power. I don't see why I should have to punish myself watching NWA Extra. So
M5 says at least we won't see Mercurium. Actually, he'll be part of the opening, but you could not watch YouTube and not see that match. So you can avoid it if you like.
I can be at the popcorn stand.
Yeah. We might still be in line trying to get in. Who knows? Media M5 says he hopes Homicide keeps the belt. People still want to see Homicide. Morton, not so much yet. Media M5 would love to see Maddie and Misa win. He's got nice things to say about Kenzie. He's looking good, getting better. Sometimes I like to hear what other wrestlers say about certain wrestlers. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but my opinion of somebody in the ring, I've never stepped in a ring before. I don't know how to sell. I don't know how to put on a match. So when I hear other wrestlers compliment wrestlers, I take that to heart. Somebody who I very much respect, Ruby Reyes, you might know her as Reina de Reyes in WoW, had a match with Kenzie Page. There's a triple threat, Kenzie Page and somebody else, a male wrestler. I don't know his name, at Mission Pro. And they worked together it was a triple threat match, an intergender triple threat match. And Reyes had nothing but good things to say about Kenzie Page, which to me kind of reaffirms what I thought, that Kenzie Page is really getting good in the ring. And she's good for being so young. Media M5 says there's hardly anything on NWA Extra, then act like the whole world knows of it. They hardly advertise it on Twitter. I thought that was the home of where they were putting the This Is Pro Wrestling podcast, just because I think, the numbers that they get on Power and USA are significantly higher than what they get on the podcast. And the algorithm does get impacted by those lower numbers, which would bring the revenue down for what they're making in the wrestling, off the wrestling. So it might have just been a good way to put the podcast on one channel and only have the wrestling on the other channel, so that they can increase their get better cost per thousands of views. So the CPM, if you will.
Makes sense. I mean, I've known other places that have split their channel up.
Yeah. Somebody who I like a lot is Chris Van Vliet, who literally just started a secondary channel of just clips in the short story format. So he has his regular podcasts, and then he has a channel just only of his clips. And it's actually brilliant because right now YouTube is very much pushing the short format videos that are similar to like the TikToks or the reels that you'd see on Instagram or Facebook. And so like it makes a lot of sense to have those short format shows. If the NWA was smart and had somebody that could do it, that would be ideal for them to do too, because they can have a whole new audience, especially with the people who have the younger audience who don't really want to sit through an entire match, who just like to see the high spots, But what do I know?
Interesting.
So then back to the pay-per-view again, Scion versus Dax Draper. We also know that added to this pay-per-view, besides Question Mac versus Question Mock, and besides Davey Richards defending the MLW Openweight National Championship against Colby Carino. And don't get it twisted either. Carino is a famous name in the MLW annals as well. Steve Carino spent a lot of time with MLW, being a former MLW champion. But we also have the TV title being defended, or I guess not defended, but decided between AJ Kazana and Jordan Clearwater. So, I mean, at least I'm not really looking forward to that match either, but I'm really hoping Jordan Clearwater wins.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in that same boat. I'm more interested to see if they put the title on Clearwater than I am the actual match.
I can make the case to put the belt on Kazana, but it's not a positive thing. It's more of like, hey, the Kazana family's been helping the NWA, so it's a little way of giving back to the company that's helping them run in Kentucky.
I mean, again, this is part of the problem when you tape the way they tape.
Yeah.
If they were going to tape again in 4 weeks, I'd say you put the title on Kazana and then take it off them in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And but we'll see.
Well, I mean, in again, the way they tell the story, the way they do it, you're right. He could win the title at the pay-per-view, and then the next night have two matches, 2 defenses, and it would look like he held the TV till early January,
Yeah.
if they decide to do that.
That's a big if.
So one other thing I want to point out today from our friends from the other Alliance guys, and you guys should get in on this. If you're on Twitter, if you're not on Twitter, you should get on it. But if you're on Twitter, our pal Tim from NWA Gold tweeted he's doing another contest, another giveaway. Now, this one isn't a championship belt, but it is a pretty cool gift in that it's a Bret the Hitman Hart autographed hockey puck from the team that he used to be a part owner in, the Hitmen. And in order to get eligible to win this prize, you have to like and follow NWA Gold, obviously our pal Dave Scooby, and Wrestling with the MMA, which you can all find on Twitter. Wrestling with the MMA, you can just look up HJWOTS. And, of course, the Alliance blog, because why not? You have to like the photo, and you have to quote and retweet with the hashtag the other Alliance guys. If you tag a friend, you get an extra drawing, and they're going to give that hockey puck away on November the 23rd. So you definitely want to be tuned in for that one. I don't think you could win it, DK, so I apologize in advance.
Ooh! I'm not hockey.
You're booing people. Here's someone that you can boo. Our pal Jaden.
You guys should be cheering. I'm here to save the show.
Well, thank God, right?
Well, somebody should.
Well, that it's kind of perfect timing, because that brings us to the other topic we were going to talk about tonight. Aside from NWA POWERRR SURGE, which we'll get to in a little bit, but 10 years ago today, my friend, Scrap Iron Adam Pearce,
who
concluded his career in the NWA.
Except he didn't, but yes.
You're right, but mostly he did. As I'll read his post that he put on Facebook, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. But I penned this 10 years ago today. Interesting to look at what has happened in my life and to others involved in that period of time. And I'm still grateful. And this is what he wrote. To everything, there is a season, and it goes, the seasons change. As I pen this, I'm only hours removed from the biggest moment in my wrestling career, a moment that will surely has not hit me yet. Colt Cabana defeated me in the 7 levels of hate, ending a war of more than 2 years, but also ending an era. My season changed. As I lay there in mid-ring bleeding profusely and soon to tap out to Cabana's Billy Goat curse, I had a clear and lucid moment wherein I knew unequivocally that I was also about to give up something more, something much bigger than I. On 5 occasions, I had been blessed and honored to have worn the 10 pounds of gold. It is without question my greatest wrestling achievement and the undisputed highlight of my career. But as I plainly told the wrestling world at the outset of 7 levels, if I couldn't beat Colt Cabana in the series, I would walk away. The fact is that I lost, and now I must walk away. Thank you to the NWA for believing in me. The faith showed by the previous leadership and membership will never be lost on me, nor will the respect that has been shown me by the new leadership. I sincerely thank all of you with the same passion and pride that I tried to pour into every single performance along the way. I humbly wish you nothing but the very best as we all move forward. The simple truth is that I may never step foot into an NWA ring again, which he did. Should that come to pass, please know that the times that I did are among the happiest of my entire life. I can only hope that the next man to wear my sweet Charlotte will feel exactly the same. With respect and love for professional wrestling and the National Wrestling Alliance, Adam Pearce, Melbourne, Australia, October 27th, 2012. Shit. Well, that's not very nice, DK.
Hey, he said a lot of beautiful words. I'm not sure he meant 60% of them.
That's definitely debatable. Now, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about here, if you ever tune into SmackDown or Raw, either on Fox or USA, you'll see a gentleman who's lacking in hair, who usually makes matches official. That would be Scrap Iron Adam Pearce, who is an official for the WWE. He also works as an agent and a producer and sometimes trainer down at the Performance Center down in Florida. And Adam Pearce, prior to his job with the WWE, spent a very long time representing the National Wrestling Alliance as its World's Heavyweight Champion. I think a champion that would only be rivaled by maybe Nick Aldis in the modern day. Adam Pearce was one of these guys who was able to take the 10 pounds of gold out of his home state of California at the time and would defend the title on the East Coast, in Mexico, in Canada, in the UK, and also Australia. Now, he never was able to get a title defense in China. Nick Aldis is the only man to hold that respects. And while he did wrestle for New Japan Wrestling on occasion, he never took the 10 pounds of gold to New Japan Pro Wrestling. But his accolades outside of that were monumental, having defended the title in Ring of Honor, defended the title on pay-per-view in Canada, taking the World's Heavyweight Championship to WXW in Germany, having wrestled Zack Sabre Jr. in the NWA UK, and again, really just kind of carrying that brand on his back for much of the time he was world champion. DK, I know that we were all there. We all witnessed that 7 levels of hate and how the ownership change impacted how the series was moving along. What memories, good or bad, do you have of that 7 levels of hate?
For me, take the ownership change out of the picture for now. For me, the 7 levels of hate was a cool concept poorly executed. And I'm going to say poorly executed for 2 basic reasons. One, it took too fucking long. 2, it went almost exactly as you would have thought it was. Pearce and others have had stories. Oh, well, originally he was going to lose 4 straight, or that they had considered this or they had considered that. Okay, none of that shit matters because it's what actually happened.
Yeah.
And it's like he should have lost 4 straight, because then I would have said, wow, that was unexpected. But it basically went with what was expected. Cabana won 3. Pearce won 3. And then Cabana was going to, take home the final.
Yeah.
And supposedly finally get a real run with the belt. Supposedly.
Yeah.
After 2 very short ones. And the reason I say supposedly is because you never know what politics is going to happen in the world and, you know, what's really going on. And so, so that's just the 7 levels of hate. It distracted from, you know, other title defenses. I think Cabana wasn't good at going out and getting title defenses in the same way Pearce was.
Right.
He was basically booked and 6 months ahead, and this is part of what cost him with the new regime, is that he was basically booked 6 months ahead. He was willing to take the title with him and defend it, but not necessarily, you know, he wasn't a person that was going to go hustle for title defenses. And, of course, 2 times he held it wasn't very long, but there were, again, because 7 levels of hate was spread out over so long.
About 5 months total.
Yeah.
And then the storyline that led up to it pretty much dominated championship wrestling from Hollywood for like 2 or 3 years.
Exactly. And so it was just one of those. And it kind of did something that we didn't want to do either, in the sense that, it, you know, with Pearce, the title was the story.
Yeah.
But when you did this, the title was almost secondary to their blood feud.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, I don't like hot shot title reigns. So, and then we ended up with 2 of them.
Yeah.
With
I hear what you're saying.
With the way things finally fell out. And so then when you add in the struggles that were going on and the lawsuit and the change in ownership and all that, supposedly Pearce was going to drop the title at another show, because there's nothing in 7 levels of hate that basically said they had to be title matches. And so, and, you know, there was a theory that, you know, the title could change hands outside of it.
Yeah.
And so
at that time too, and I'll just bring up, like, Pearce was still having title matches outside of the 7 levels of hate. I mean, he wrestled against Heath Hatton in Illinois, Principal Pound in Saskatchewan in Canada, Vance, Nevada, and Red Deer, Chris Wayne in Saskatchewan. He would wrestle against he would challenge for the Ring Warriors Championship against Bruce Santee, but that wasn't a title match. Let's see. He was a part of a 3-way elimination match with Lance Erickson and Damian Wayne out in Mountain State. Excuse me. That was only for the Mountain State Heavyweight Championship. Excuse me. So, I mean, there were title matches that were happening around that too.
Yeah, he was still defending outside. And so the rumor was that at the time, Mountain State was planning like this big weekend of matches. And I don't want to get too deep into the weeds. But there was one person who was booking and doing all this, and then another guy that was actually kind of the finance behind the scenes. And so, you know, the guy that was supposed to be doing the booking and the promoting and all that was talking about how they were getting, you know, they were looking for sponsorships and stuff like that. And apparently he never actually went out and got one. So as it got close to the time that they were supposedly going to have, Adam Pearce was set to defend the title against Damian Wayne. And I think it had even been announced that that title matchup was going to happen. And the story is Wayne was supposed to win the title off Pearce, because the new ownership wanted the title to be available, because they were, part of their requirement was going to be that you book the world champion. And when the guy who actually owned the promotion and was running the money found out that basically there were no sponsorships, wasn't even sure if the buildings had been signed.
Wow.
He canceled everything. And so that basically ended Mountain State as we knew it. And the matches never happened. And then Pearce actually wrestled for Bruce Tharp's promotion in Texas, defended the title against Rudy Boy Gonzalez. And I always felt like if they had been smart, they would have brought the title they would have brought Wayne in for that thing and switched the title there. And certainly Pearce shouldn't have left with the championship, whether he voluntarily vacated it, stripped of it, whatever you want to call it. I always felt like that. That was their opportunity to get the belt off him. And supposedly they had originally planned to do that. I don't know about the title change, but the concept was that Pearce wasn't supposed to leave that night with the title. And he was like, oh, but, I got these bookings. And, these are stories from the other side, not from Pearce's side.
Sure.
But he was like, it doesn't mean they're not true. He's like, oh, I got these bookings. I've already promised I'd bring the title to defend it, everything like that. And the NWA promotion, once they finally took away the title status from the seventh thing, wanted Pearce to maintain the championship and lose it. And he basically wouldn't commit, and because he'd already planned on doing what he did. He talked real positive about it, but then, at the same time, he left the belt in the middle of the ring, let Cabana slam him, everything about it, and then, the two buddies walked off together. So the history there isn't great. I think at the time, for people that love Pearce and people who love Cabana, it was probably more over than it really should have been in a normal wrestling fan thing.
Yeah.
Again, concept okay, execution not the best. And then on a personal note, I felt Pearce handled the end wrong.
Jaden, because you were a part of the Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators when they had tenure with the NWA, what did you think about everything that fell out during the 7 Levels of Hate and going through the ownership change in the NWA and then how the end results with the 10 pounds of gold?
Well, first of all, I'm trying to remember this whole situation. I remember a few details I think DK left out. If I remember correctly, I believe Dr. Zirconium was talking with some of the owners about doing a champion switch with Damian Wayne and Adam Pearce at a dog event, but logistics wouldn't let that happen. I also, if I remember correctly, originally the reason Adam Pearce was doing this to begin with and is having his big swan song is because he was going to end up, or he was supposed to end up where he ended up anyway, as a producer in the WWE, and something happened on that front, if I remember correctly. So that's the whole reason he was even planning this big swan song, if I remember, because he was planning on going to work for the WWE, and then something happened in that case. I remember talking with Dr. Zirconium, and we weren't the biggest fan with Cabana being champion because there was attempts made to book Colt Cabana, and Colt Cabana didn't want to work with Dog because he said they were associated with Ricky O, which, other than buying some belts from Ricky O, there was no association at all between Dog and Ricky O. Oh, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. But
God bless you.
I know that now it was a cough, but I'm losing my voice again. I know that Cabana had no plans whatsoever to work for Dog because he had the belief that there was some kind of association with Ricky O. So I know there wasn't a big fan of Cabana being the champion. I know Zirconium was kind of upset about that. And I also know it kind of led to the next big event that just happened to be going on was the Wrath of the Champions in Clayton, New Jersey was soon after that. And that's what kind of led to what ended up being a 9-way championship match and a whole lot of controversy.
Well, it's kind of funny because you could see geographically where everyone was at. Your boy Jay is in Southern California. DKM was in the heart of Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth area. And Jaden is out there in New Jersey, out in the East Coast. And each one of us kind of saw things a little bit differently, but also because some of the people we were affiliated with at the time. Now, I was very close to Adam Pearce and Dave Marquez, a championship wrestler from Hollywood. And during the whole litigation, which we're not going to get into too much more tonight, but obviously there was a line drawn in the sand and you were either on one side or the other. And although it didn't impact our friendship in any way, shape, or form, the people that I wanted to win lost. And the people that, I think benefited DKM won because the ownership became centralized in Texas with the ownership that took over. And
for the record, I was never supporting of their lawsuit.
There you go. And I'm not trying to say that you were, but you kind of benefited just because of the relationships you had being in the state that you were in. So I kind of looked at it as a bad thing when it went from Pro Wrestling Organization to International Wrestling Corporation. And Jaden's part with being with Dog, he kind of got to see it on both sides as well. And I mean, I saw some emails that I probably should never have seen where some of the people on the new ownership were happy with the way that the results happened in Australia. And some people were very unhappy with what happened in Australia. And I do know that there were more than one concerted efforts to have a match with Adam Pearce and Damian Wayne, but it never lined up with the stars to happen. I know there was talk of a match in Texas. There was the talk of the match in New Jersey. And obviously none of those came to fruition. And again, when you're a part-time wrestling promotion, which the NWA still very much is, if somebody isn't wrestling full-time and they have to have a career outside of pro wrestling, it gets hard to line up matches that make sense. Can't call off a day of work if you're going to miss 3 or 4 days of work. That's how you support your family. The wrestling's kind of more, it gets difficult and you have to make sacrifices. And some of those matches just didn't line up. Ultimately, I don't think anyone was really happy with the way that it ended. The NWA at that point was pushing for, there was 2 parts of the new ownership, and one of them pushing for Adam to just forfeit the title. Another one was pushing for Adam to lose to Cabana, and then Cabana to drop the title to Damian Wayne. Obviously, that didn't fit in with the plans that Cabana had, and obviously there was a lot of muckery involved. And I don't think anyone's really happy with the way that it turned out then, and I don't imagine that anyone's really happy with the way it turned out now.
Oh, okay. I guess probably was a little happy.
Okay, fair enough. Cahagas was probably happy. But I mean, as a fan of the NWA, DKM, were you happy with that end result of them dropping the title in Australia?
Well, no, I'm never happy when the title goes vacant. I just feel like it's wrong, and it hurts the value overall of the title every time you vacate it. And so, the good thing is, I think that was the last time it was vacated, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
Because it was just vacant recently.
Yeah, with
Cardona.
Woo.
But that was due to injury, so at least there's some solace in that it was an injury-related thing and not that they couldn't work on an agreement.
Yeah, and it was it's also one of those weird cases of, like, I don't even have vacant listed. You know, I keep my own list of the world champions. And, you know, normally in between you put vacant. And, like, I don't even have vacant in between that because he was basically champion up until that night. And then the title change went in. So it was a, how do I put it?
Forfeit?
I mean, yes, it was vacant, but it wasn't long-term vacant. It wasn't storyline vacant. It wasn't we can't get along vacant. It was, you know, we had a champion going in. We had a new champion coming out. And forfeit, like you might say. And it's just slightly different. We haven't, you know, a lot of people thought that Billy might vacate the title like he did all the others.
Yeah.
And then put Jazz back as women's. And then she had to vacate the title. And but you know, a lot of people thought that, you know, Tim Storm, who's Tim Storm, they're not going to want Tim Storm to be the champion. He's, you know, they'll just vacate the titles all of TNA and start over again. And so I was glad they didn't do that.
Well, that's bad for lineage. That's bad for prestige. The best thing they did was what they actually ended up doing was build up Tim Storm as somebody. So when he lost the championship, it meant something. That was pretty smart of them. They should be thanking the stars they had, Marquez and everybody, to get as much publicity out of that. But they really did maximize, and that 10 pounds of gold was great. If we could take the highlights of the two changes after the pro wrestling organization loss of the brand, and maybe put that into pro wrestling organization, that would be pretty awesome. I think. I think it's been bad that Billy Corgan owns the NWA. I think it was bad that the Three Faces of Fear had it. I bet you today, if the original owners were still there, Dog would probably be part of the NWA, and there'd probably still be regional promotions. And yes, it won't be as it wouldn't have Billy Corgan's name associated with it, and wouldn't have had all the stuff that he brought along. But is it really any better? I mean, hell, anybody can have an internet show. The productions are pretty nice, but the storyline and the writing and the logic and everything else is pretty bad. And do we really need 712,000 championships just on one program when they can be spread around through multiple different promotions?
Well,
and it would be great if we could have the 10 pounds of gold. Somebody knew what they were doing to put that series on for the NWA when it was under the previous ownership. But again, I guess it's debatable whether it's any better or not.
Well, when we think about the previous ownership, and you mentioned the high production, you know, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, which, you know, some people kind of looked as to the flagship of the NWA. They had pretty similar productions, if not the same. Now, they didn't have the sleek, sexy look of the Georgia Public Broadcasting Studios, and it never really did feel like a Jim Crockett promotion type show, but they did give you that glossy produced look that was lacking from some NWA promotions. And
a lot of the NWA promotions hated it.
Yeah, and which is you know it's a two-edged sword, because at one point what Marquez was doing in Hollywood, I mean, he was bringing in talents from the other promotions. He was bringing in guys like Mike DiBiase, Phil Shatter. He brought in Damian Wayne. He brought in I can't remember the kid's name now. Someone that wrestled in Virginia, but I can't think of his name right now. But he also brought in guys from he brought in El Gran Apollo. Yeah, I don't know why I couldn't say that. I think I had another stroke. He brought in Gosh, I can't. What was the
Drew
tag?
Onyx he brought in. He brought in the Skull Crushers. He brought in.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, he brought in the Dark City Fight Club, I believe.
I don't know
The problem wasn't necessarily that who he brought in, and that was more in the colors era with the NWA on colors and stuff.
Yeah.
Championship Wrestling from Hollywood is what most people had a problem with because it was mostly just a few outside guys and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. They didn't bring in outside people, and that's mostly because nobody wanted to fly them out there. But they didn't bring in outside people, and it was too well produced. It was too slick. It didn't come off as a wrestling promotion. It came off as a wrestling scene on a television show. And that was a lot of I remember that was a lot of the flack that it got because it didn't feel or look like the NWA, didn't feel or look like a professional wrestling promotion. It felt like you were watching the wrestling part of Glow or the wrestling part of an episode of Family Guy, or not Family Guy, Family Matters, or something that was on TGIF where they had a wrestling scene. It never felt like a wrestling promotion at the time. It didn't feel like the NWA, and mostly because of jealousy, I know, but a lot of the wrestling promoters really just thought that Marquez had way too much control, and that's why Pearce and Cabana were champions, and that led to a lot of ill feelings, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I did hear those stories too. And when you look back, I mean, remember when Bob decided to put the belt on the Sheik, and the outcry from Hollywood was so loud and so like, no, you can't do that. But it's like, yeah, it was a vote. I don't know if it was voted by the board of directors or just a declaration of the director of the NWA, but there was a large outcry from the West Coast about putting the title on Sheik. But that opened up opportunities for the NWA in the short term with like 0-1 and bringing the Sheik's promotion into the NWA, which brought in Craig Classic, and it certainly changed things for the NWA.
Good, but
what's that?
Not all for the good.
Not necessarily. But like you're right when Jaden mentions that maybe Marquez had too much power. I mean, the biggest...
one of my problems with Hollywood and Marquez's show was that it was often presented as the NWA.
Yeah.
Although he might bring in, like he brought in like Kevin Douglas during his junior heavyweight title run, and that was mainly at the insistence at that was mainly at the insistence of Trubich, who wanted to get the junior heavyweight title over after what happened with Craig Classic or whatever.
Yeah.
But for those that don't remember, Sheik was actually out there at the beginning of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and they had started the storyline for him and Pearce. And
that's a whole other bag of worms too.
Man, it's the one I remember talking about. I used to say things on the board that people would think was like supposed to be inside information stuff. It's like, if you actually followed, half of what was being said out there in interviews on stuff like that, that's where I got most of my information.
Yeah.
But Bill Barron's talking about that said that basically what had happened was that Sheik and Marquez had come to an agreement for the normal rate for Sheik to be out there. The way Sheik interpreted it was, I'm getting my normal rate of pay and expenses paid. And I guess the way Marquez interpreted it is, well, you're getting what I normally pay people to come out to do my TV shows, which, spoiler, is somewhere between 0 to not much. And then I don't remember if he covered expenses or not. So Sheik felt like he was being ripped off. Marquez felt like, and then also, Sheik felt like Marquez was trying to meet him. He was going to put him in a match with, was it Joey Ryan for the North American title?
Yeah.
And Sheik claims, not that I believe Sheik 100%, but Sheik claims that he was supposed to be jobbed out to Ryan and other people there in Hollywood before he beat Pearce for the title, you know, one of those setup challenger type things or whatever. And as another wrestler or 10 have told me, if I'm going to be on TV, if I'm going to win, you don't have to pay me as much, or you know whatever, just the bare minimum. But if I'm going to lose, you better start paying me, because it doesn't do me any good to be on TV to lose.
Yeah, I mean, look, they call it jobbing for a reason, because you're getting paid, right? Like,
Right.
If you're sacrificing whatever momentum you have in the world of professional wrestling. And look, at the time, Joey Ryan was a very popular wrestler. This was long before the Dick Flip. He was a former tag team champion with Carl the Machine Gun Anderson.
He was a face at the time.
Yeah, he was a huge baby face. He was revered in SoCal and revered in some of the other places he was working.
With a different haircut and shaved and
yeah. And when he ended up when the whole fallout happened, it's it was kind of disappointing. And I remember knowing from speaking to Sheik himself that he was literally in Orange County, minutes away from the venue, but had no intention of going because he didn't like the what they were going to do with him. So, and again, there are several sides to every story. We are presenting you with the story that we know. Exactly. I can't tell you that this is factual. I'm telling you that this is the story that I know, and this is the story that DKM knows. And if Jaden jumps back on, you know, he was telling you the side of the story that he heard and he knew.
Let me answer a question for Willie. Willie Bowen asked, who's better, Bruce Thorpe or Billy Corgan running the NWA? And that's a trick question. Bruce was a big picture guy, but not a businessman.
No.
And so he would have lots of ideas and lots of thoughts, but he wasn't good at executing them. When he had Ronquillo there to balance him out, it was a better run place, but even they, you know, had the conflict. And of course, Fred was out within 3 months. So most of the time was Ronquillo and Tharp, and then the last year was just Tharp. And sorry, I was reading another question. Well, I'll get to you in a second. NWA Gold. But on the other hand, you know, there were the promotions, and they did have ideas that were good ideas, but again, probably poorly executed. You know, like they wanted a standard for NWA shows, so that they kind of looked the same, felt the same. They wanted the same rough shirts and everything. And so that there was a feel, because their concept for a show was to do kind of a best of what other promotions were putting out already. And if that had been able to have been executed, it would have been a good thing. But of course, you know, that's difficult to tell Smoky Mountain, this is how you need to film it. Tell Anarchy, this is how you need to film it. Tell Hollywood, this is how you need to film it. You know, whoever was on fire, whatever they were called, you know, this is how you need to do it. It's hard to do that unless you have the money to provide them with the equipment and the backing and everything like that. So
yeah.
So
this is the case of like, hey, this is what we need you to do. Okay, pay me. No. This is what we need you to do. There was no money exchange, no money involved. Just make your show better. That's all.
Yeah. none of them were rich. And so, they had some good concepts and maybe could have put together some better booking overall, but I don't know. Billy, of course, has the funds to do the slick show. Production's not as good as it was, and let's be honest, it's probably because he lost Marquez and Lagana both at the same time. And Lagana actually had influence. He was actually kind of more running the NWA than Billy was.
Yeah.
Billy was behind the booking, but Lagana was the person who executed it.
Yep.
And he probably executed it better than Billy would have.
I mean, I've always heard the story that the booking has always been Billy.
Right.
But at the time, you had Marquez and Lagana to filter. So, like, when the question would come up, hey, I want to bring in this guy, the question mark. Then Lagana and Marquez would say, okay, well, how? Why? What are we going to do with him? And so Billy would be forced to kind of think about it before just acting.
And I think they were also able to,
filter bad ideas.
Well, like backstage, some of the things that we complain about now. Why don't they edit this? Why don't they do that? I think that was done more in Lagana. Even the Jim Cornette controversy. I mean, part of what made it so controversial is that Lagana never would really take responsibility for the fact that he was the one that edited it. He didn't find anything wrong with it. He didn't edit it out. But then he was, but he was more than willing to blame Cornette for everything.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just, that's kind of the way it goes. Anyway, NWA Gold, did Sheik, or he who shall not be named, apparently, keep the belt after the fallout? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He flat out stole it.
Yep.
He and his brother tried to claim it was a gift. It wasn't.
Well, he even tried to say that it was, he took the belt in lieu of the receipts that he was owed from the NWA, apparently from some T-shirts that were sold. Now, this is what he told me directly. I don't have it written in front of me. Sorry, guys. But there had a lot to do with that there was a merchandise deal that he fulfilled his end of the obligation and wasn't compensated. And upon talking to Marquez about it, Marquez said, yeah, he wasn't compensated for what he's talking about, but that didn't equal the championship belt. It was a
brand new belt.
Yeah, it literally was a brand new belt that they had made for digital television, because Championship Wrestling from Hollywood was filming in HD, and they needed a very crisp and clean looking belt. And so the Sheik got it. The Sheik has held on to it. At one point, the Sheik had it listed on eBay and was sent a cease and desist by NWA ownership, modern day NWA ownership, to take that auction down. So as far as I know, yes, the Sheik still has the belt.
Yeah.
I should message him, see if he wants to sell it.
You should.
Probably can't afford what he wants for it. But yeah, NWA Gold. And then the fallout from that, too, that we didn't even get into is the then junior heavyweight champion, Craig Classic, who was looked up to the Sheik, maybe even considered him a mentor.
Was young and stupid.
Yeah, took his version of the Cloverleaf Championship that the NWA specifically produced for Tiger Mask 4. They produced two versions of that belt. One went to Tiger Mask 4, who got to keep, and the other version was used by the NWA. So once the feud between Black Tiger's Mask 4, Tiger Mask 4 was over.
Let's clear up a little bit of that.
You go for it.
The belt that had last been used, which was a cast belt, I think Joe Price had done, either Joe Price or Kevin Rhodes, was basically falling apart. And so when the title went to Japan, the original Tiger Mask had the old Cloverleaf belt. He had kept it. And so they had brought that out and started to use it. Now, technically, that was the NWA's belt. He had just kept it forever. And so he put it on, was it Tiger Mask 4 or Black Tiger or 4 or whoever. They swapped titles. I don't remember which direction it went. And they were using it, and then came to the U.S. and they lost it to Quackenbush.
Right.
And so, and if you go look at the match where Quackenbush won it, you'll see he has the old belt.
Huh.
And it's zinc, everything's been rubbed off of it by now. It's just like zinc and black, And, but New Japan, who was affiliated with the NWA at the time, with Marquez, they wanted to get that belt back to Tiger Mask, who basically loaned it to them. So a deal was struck where New Japan bought a new version of the belt, probably made by Milliken. And the difference between it was, instead of being silver and black, it was gold and black. And that's the one that Quackenbush had and that Classic had. And so Classic gave up the belt, gave up the title to say that he was in, as supporting them, the Sheik, who'd been stripped of the world title. Then got mad because NWA promoters canceled his booking since he was no longer champion. And again, Bill Burns kind of came out flat out and told him in public. He goes, "Yes, we canceled you because we booked a world junior heavyweight title match. You were no longer world junior heavyweight champion and wasn't defending the belt. I didn't need you for that."
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to pay you to come in. I wasn't paying you just to come in and wrestle. I was paying for a title match. And so Classic took the belt with him. And to be fair, I think both Classic and Sheik thought they were going to be big stars in 01.
Yeah.
I think that they had been told, so he took the belt to 01. He kept claiming that he wasn't going to send it back to the NWA because the NWA didn't own the belt because New Japan had paid for it. And we're telling him, well, you don't own it. He's like, well, I've offered to send it back to New Japan, but they don't want it or whatever, something to that effect. And it was all a load of malarkey.
Yeah.
So he held it for about 2.5 months, maybe 3 in 01, where they called it the New Wrestling Alliance.
I think they still use it too, don't they?
They use it. And it's unified with some other junior heavyweight titles that they have. And so, kind of an a la All Japan deal.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they took the belt off him, took the belt from him and kept it. Basically used him in low card position from then on. He never got it back. He never became the star. Shortly after, because Sheik held the 01 title, which at the time they were calling an AWA title, and they were using a replica of the old AWA inmate belt.
Did you call that inmate belt?
Yeah, inmate.
Why was it called the inmate belt?
Because it was made by inmates.
Oh, really?
Apparently it was made out of part of a prison project. That here's something most people don't know. That belt was never owned by the AWA, the original. Nick Bockwinkel had it made.
Real quick, just to go back to the Cloverleaf title. This is the only picture I could find that had Mike Quackenbush on it, and the picture quality was so poor that you can't really see. But that's it right there. Let me see if I can get a better version. It's kind of a hard graphic because it's, the internet, even though the internet's been around for a while, we didn't always have the best quality out there.
No, you're kidding me.
Let me see if I can, I'm trying, guys. Let me see if I can pull up something better. So it's a little bit better, but not much.
He's the one that held the title for what, 2.5 years and defended it 10 times, and like 8 of them were in the first 6 months.
And one of them was against Claudio Castagnoli. What the hell? I never got that. That always made me angry.
Yeah, well, I don't think Claudio was ever that small.
No, he was never a junior heavyweight.
Well, Jumbo Tsuruta challenged for the NWA Junior Heavyweight Championship in Japan.
Well, stranger things.
I was going to say, I don't think he was ever a junior heavyweight either. So,
well, so that's as much time as we can kind of stall about talking about power. So,
is it really? Isn't there anything else we can talk about?
Let's rip the Band-Aid off and just we'll go through it real quick. Why is the camera so close on your face right now?
Oh, sorry. I was looking to see if I had a picture of the title back.
Gotcha. Luthus says that story was on Belt Talk at one point. I'm not familiar with Belt Talk. I think that might be something I should look into. But nevertheless, although we've been trying to avoid it, we're going to talk a little bit about this episode of the Alliance guys, or excuse me, the Power Surge.
Anything but that.
Well, no, okay, so we all went into knowing that this was a filler episode. So if you had high expectations of a show like this, you're just
You're an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, they run out of content, and again, it's one of the drawbacks of filming the way that they do. Now, Pollo Del Mar, who's been on the Alliance guys, on the pre-party quite a bit, kind of advocates why they do it, because they have all the talent there, and everyone's there. They don't have to film. They don't have to fly. There's no secondary flight. Everyone's there at one point. So I see the benefit of it, but the drawback is it's very hard to pivot storyline wise, and you're kind of stuck with whatever you're doing. But more so than that is you can only record so much content, and by the time you get towards the end of the film, the end of the shows, you start running out of stuff to do. So this Power Surge episode was completely audience empty. Although we know that cast and crew members were probably sitting the opposite of the camera side, so that you would hear an audience. But we know that these were filler shows, and you look at the matches, they didn't make any sense. There was no consistency in terms of storyline booking, and the announcers tried to kind of pull things together. But to be honest, it's subpar wrestling, and that's what it was always going to be. And no matter how they frame it, or whatever talking heads they put in around it, it was always just going to be subpar wrestling. Now, I'll be honest, if you watch the show on mute, you didn't see necessarily bad wrestling, just kind of inconsistency in terms of how things were booked. And so I'll just get to it. The show kicks off Velvet After Dark, the second episode of this. This is also the second Power Surge we've had this season. And we get a reunion of the beautiful people with Angelina Love and Velvet Sky. And Velvet is yelling at the audience, complaining that we complained about what she was wearing last time. And that's why she looks frumpy in the blue sweater. Nobody cared what she looked like last time. It was just bad writing, bad execution.
Bad softcore porn.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. What it was is her out of character, to be quite honest. We didn't get like the Velvet Sky we have on commentary when she first came to the NWA was somebody who is obviously just trying to learn on the job how to do the job. In more recent weeks, months maybe, we've got a Velvet who is more inclined to state some opinions and kind of give more inside information. I really think she's gotten better at the job, and especially when Idol's not out there, she does a pretty decent job. But like, you give me a character and they see the character in one way and then radically change that character to fit a novelty idea for an episode. It just doesn't work for me. And that was my biggest complaint, was she was over-sexualizing the talent. She was trying to be too sexy. It's like, this is a wrestling show. I didn't come here for that entertainment. There's a lot of websites out there if you want to find them. But like, that's not what I tune into wrestling for. So yeah, I mean, I didn't really care about what she had to say. I didn't care if she's in a sweater. I didn't care if she was wearing what she used to wrestle in. I just didn't care. DK, do you have anything you want to add?
Not that would take me less than a 70-minute rant.
So we get a matchup with the Country Gentlemen's Anthony Andrews versus Trax. Now, I thought this was going to be a real fun hoss fight, and it wasn't bad. I'm going to preface that by saying none of the wrestling was bad this week. Just wasn't great. It was okay. The invisible crowd makes it very weird to watch, because I'm wondering, like, did they all decide who they were going to cheer for and boo collectively? Are they manipulating the system? Are they trying to get us to feel like we should be booing Anthony Andrews and cheering Trax? Now, Trax lost on his debut for Power. He lost against EC3, which, again, there's no shame in losing to EC3. He's a superstar. But he's not somebody who I look at and think he's going to go on a winning streak. As a singles competitor, Andrews has had, let me try that again. As a singles competitor, Andrew has been handed losses by Rodney Mack and Jack Stane. But he does hold victories over Gustavo. And as the tag team, the Country Gentlemen have been moderately successful. A lot of wins as a tag team. The match was a lot more back and forth than it probably should have been. Trax was relying on sheer power. Andrews was relying on shortcuts. Andrews gets the W with a pump handle power slam, also known as the Hay Baler. It was a good victory for Andrews. Like I said, it wasn't a terrible match. It was just okay. What were your thoughts, DK?
Well, I think you kind of nailed it. It was okay. This is one of those things that if you were rich and you had all the right equipment and software, and you could download this show off a fight and, block out the commentary and just watch a match.
Yeah.
You could probably go, okay, nothing special, but not a bad little wrestling match. Not a bad little filler,
Yeah. It wasn't a bad match. And if this been on any other card, I would say the same thing. Probably not a bad match. Definitely wasn't a show stealer. It was fun.
It's just, with so much, when you're surrounded by so much bad, it's just hard to enjoy something that's just not excellent,
Yeah. Dave Scooby said, did Anthony Andrews win? So when Clearwater wins the TV title, AJ can team up again and go after the U.S. tag belts. And the answer is probably yeah. You know what? Kazana and Andrews aren't a bad tag team. Their win-loss record is better than, the Spectaculars. If anyone that should be challenging for those tag titles, it's probably the Country Gentlemen. And it would honestly be a much more fun match, too, because then you got 4 hosses in there just trying to do hoss stuff. All right. So the next segment is the Beautiful People. They never called them that either. That's just Jay Cal's own vernacular. Velvet Sky and Angelina Love. That's the Beautiful People. They're in the back with Magic, Jake Dumas, and CJ. Jake calls himself the Magic Bastard. CJ made the segment for me. Her entire gimmick.
Magic what?
He called himself the Magic Bastard.
Well, I leave out the magic part, but
That's fair. CJ's entire gimmick throughout this interview is perfect. She saves this segment for me. The whole time she's doing the Vanna White showcasing, presenting, and she's like doing it with Angelina's hair, and it's CJ's great. I absolutely adore her in this role, and it's funny the way she's interacting with the show. And at one point, Jake Dumas says that he taught her how to speak English, and so she starts reading off in a very monotonous voice Dumas's grocery list and ends it with extra small Trojan condoms. So very classy, but it did make me laugh a little bit. I will say that, but I think that's more because I really like CJ and would like to see her get more camera time.
This is proof that having at least one talented person who's doing well can save a segment, because the segment in general sucked.
Yes.
But I was almost so distracted by her that I could find the humor in what she was doing. And so it was like, as long as I focused on her and what she was doing, then I was entertained. But like,
so now you know what? Now you know my approach.
Yeah, but if I tried to pay attention to what they were actually doing for the segment, then I was like, I need to hang myself as soon as possible.
So that takes us to the next segment. We get Soda Pop versus Eric Jackson. I don't know much about Soda Pop. Maybe, DK, you know a little bit more about him maybe than I do, because he is from the great state of Texas. He was trained by Jazz and Rodney Mack. That's all I really know about the guy. Now, Jackson.
I think he's just kind of a new guy that's being trained by Rodney. I haven't really heard anything about him.
Jackson, we know he has fared much better in the junior heavyweight division, but famously was destroyed by Jack Stane in not one but two epic matches while Jax was the U.S. champion.
U.S.
Excuse me.
You are having strokes tonight, aren't you?
National champion. They have the U.S. tag titles. They should have just had the U.S. Championship. Anyways, the match was a nice showcase of two lesser-known junior heavyweights. Obviously, I think they see some potential with Eric Jackson. I think he might be getting a push towards having a match with Homicide down the road. He basically keeps control of most of the match, but it was, again, not a bad match, just not a very great match. And he ends up winning the match with a bridging German suplex. It looked really good. It looked very crisp. What did you think of this one?
If two wrestlers nobody knows and nobody cares about have a match, does it matter?
No.
Now, if they have a excellent match or exciting match or fun match, that's one thing. But when they just kind of go out and have a match,
yeah,
doesn't matter. And I'm curious to you out in the chat room if any of you are still listening to us.
I know that there's the New Japan pay-per-view tonight, so our audience is a little bit smaller than normal.
True. But I was wondering, do you guys, when you're watching matches, at the end of it, do you normally have a thought like, oh, that was fun, or that was exciting, or hell yeah, or I should have got popcorn, or, because really with every match basically that happens, I kind of have a thought at the end. It's like a non-voluntary thought. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not me being deep or going to myself, well, Mr. Mercer, what do you think of that match if you were to give it a critique? I just kind of go, oh, that was fun. Or, oh, that was pretty neat. Or, or, hey, I really enjoyed when they did this. Or, it's kind of like, it was all right. A little pitchy, dog, a little pitchy, but, it's all right.
It's all right, dog. It's good. It's good, dog.
Yeah. So. Anything else happen on the show? I kind of tried to blot it from my memory as it.
Well, you made the right decision, obviously. But as we get to the show, next up we have another segment. This one's kind of weird. We got Kyle Davis in the control center. Now, Kyle Davis is normally a straight man for the NWA. He's always kind of, he's been put in very compromising positions and usually does it with a smile, whether it be Tyrus using his head as a resting post or just watching people get so flustered when cutting promos. But this time we get Kyle in a creepy rundown of the pay-per-view where he's not wearing a shirt because it's after dark, I guess. And then his delivery is not the same Kyle Davis that I like. It's something that's a little bit creepy, and just creepy. And basically we do find out that Question Mac versus Question Mock has been booked for loser loses mask match, whatever you call it. And the TV championship will be crowned when Kazana and Clearwater square off 1-on-1 for the TV title. So that was at least some new information, but I don't know why he felt the need to take it to that level. But did you even watch it?
No, there's this neat button on my remote that says fast forward. And as soon as I saw what he looked like, that's what I did.
Well, again, you made the right decision, but you did miss out on the news, but you're hearing it here, which is why we do this podcast. Next up, we get another Beautiful People segment, this time with Taryn Terrell, who I'm a big fan of Taryn Terrell. I like Taryn Terrell quite a bit. And Natalia Markova. Velvet Sky asks why Natalia chose to work with Taryn. The two start bickering like they do, and they fight for the microphone and placement in front of the camera. Eventually, Natalia walks off, and Velvet takes the mic back from Taryn Terrell. Just again, another nothing segment. I mean, if you like looking at Taryn Terrell, you scored on this one. If you have a thing for Natalia Markova, you scored on this one. Outside of that, just kind of a waste of time. DK, did you fast forward through this as well?
No, I muted this. I do like looking at Taryn.
She's easy on the eyes.
I'm single now, by the way, so, I get to look at Taryn all I want now.
You don't have to feel guilty about it.
I don't have to feel guilty anymore. So.
It's all right. I still feel guilty. So that takes us to the next segment, which is the Rolando versus KC Rocks match. Now, surprisingly, I kind of like this.
Okay, you hit your head.
It was the big little brother of Rush Freeman, who has 2 victories over the former NWA Worlds Heavyweight Champion Matt Cardona, taking on KC Rocks, the would-be protege of Aaron Stevens, if Aaron Stevens gave a damn. I don't believe Rocks has won a match yet in the NWA, and as quickly as the match starts, Rolando puts the boots to Rocks. These are definitely 2 of the smallest guys on the roster. I think even Joe Galley mentions that they would be like a featherweight competitors. That's great if the NWA decides to start a featherweight division. They could be the 2 competitors in the division.
Let's not give them any ideas.
Please don't.
You know how Billy likes titles.
Yeah, this match basically just didn't need to happen. It wasn't awful. I'll say that. It wasn't awful. But I also would say it wasn't good. And if this was a dark match or an opening card match on a much better show, I probably would have a problem with it. But again, I feel like we got a big heaping dose of mediocrity with this episode.
I didn't like this match.
Okay.
I won't say it was awful, but I won't say it wasn't either.
Well, there was finally a match where you had Rolando who didn't look like a mini in the match.
You've probably said that correctly. And look, if the NWA wants to do weight classes and get rid of some of the other titles, I'm all for doing weight classes. And, we can have featherweight and a lightweight and a middleweight and, welterweight, junior heavyweight, whatever. But, you got to bring in enough guys that size to make it worthwhile. Which all you got to do is go look on today's independent scene where, 125-pound Jimmy Joe is wrestling 121-pound My Name is Frankie for the
Hi, Frankie.
for the promotion for the promotion's World Heavyweight Championship. And
sounds like you've been watching a lot of SoCal wrestling.
SoCal at least has a few big guys.
Very few.
But and even they're smaller big guys. But
yeah.
But great. Now I got your cough. Thanks a lot, Johnny.
Did you get COVID after I had it too?
Yes.
For two guys that never met each other, you sure are catching what I'm putting down.
Yeah, don't get anything serious then.
Yeah, no.
And yeah, I don't. It was a waste of time.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Like I said, if this was a opening match on any other program, I probably would have been fine with it. I didn't hate the match like DK. It was okay. It was okay. All right. Going back to more segments, we get the beautiful people with Mercurio. Velvet Sky says that she likes saying Mercurio because it's like saying Mario. She calls Mercurio sexy, which I don't. Again, I've said this before. We're booking towards Billy Corgan's. Oh, my battery's dead. We're booking towards Billy Corgan's preferences. Does Billy Corgan think that Mercurio's sexy? Is that why he's in this role? Is it like is this what Billy Corgan thinks is this what his definition of sexy is? Is Mercurio?
Could he? I'm just putting this out there. Could he be doing it as ironic?
I mean, maybe, sure. Okay, that's fair. That's definitely fair.
I'm not saying he is. I mean, I'm more like you. It's kind of like this is sexy, but I'm only gonna assume that has been a gimmick before.
Yeah,
where guys are kind of ironically. I mean, let's remember Harley Race's nickname was Handsome Harley Race at one time. So, I don't think he was ever that handsome. So
no, and I think I had an epiphany yesterday, and I was, watching our friends on the other Alliance Guys podcast, and they were talking about the back and forth between Kenzie and Ella Envy, and the epiphany came to me that maybe that's what Billy Corgan thinks that young adult women act like. Maybe that they're still in that teenage phase, because Tim tried to make the point like, are they booking this storyline for young ladies? Because I don't think that's appealing to them. My daughter wouldn't care for this. I can tell you right now, my daughter wouldn't care for that storyline. And so my thought process, and it still remains, is maybe he thinks that that's how young ladies act. Maybe that's his opinion of young women. And then it would kind of make sense if that's how he thinks that that's how they act. Then he's just trying to follow suit.
Someone bring Mickey James in to set him straight.
That would be nice. At this point, anything would be nice.
Yeah. They're obviously now, of course, they're heels.
Yeah.
So they're supposed to be annoying.
Yes.
And they're obviously playing to a mean girls stereotype.
100%.
And okay, that's a legitimate pro wrestling thing to do. So the question is, is it a gimmick that in and of itself does not work? Or is it a gimmick that could work, but the way they're doing it isn't? Or am I just out of touch?
Yeah.
And, I think everybody's abandoned us for New Japan. But, I mean, that's my thing. And I honestly don't know. Honestly do not know. Maybe I'm just, I'm old and grumpy and I may not be in touch with it. I mean, I've worked with youth before through churches and stuff like that. And, I had a very basic rule. Youth are there to be mean to. We do not speak in the vernacular that the youth use unless it's to mock them. And, you know, little things like that. And so, you know, it could be a case of me being out of touch. Maybe there are people out there that like it. I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know who they would be. Typically, you would play to the younger audience.
Yeah.
In other words, if they're in their 20s, but they're trying, you know, when iCarly was on, our Carly wasn't really set for teenagers. It was set for preteens.
Yeah.
And shows that are set for younger girls, you know, a lot of times have the preteen girls, you know, and stuff like that. And so, you know, I have a lot of nieces. None of them are young anymore.
Right.
And I certainly remember when they were young and being like into Miley Cyrus and everything like that. Of course, I never was, but, you know, again, I wasn't the target audience.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I mean, is this something that the younger crowd would find appealing? I mean, is this something that you could get kind of, this would be more targeted towards 15-year-old girls.
Yeah.
I mean, would 15-year-old girls like this? I don't know. 15-year-old girls are weird. 15-year-old boys are strange. 15-year-old girls are weird. And
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
I can't say they're wrong. To me, it's not being executed in a good way. You know, I don't know. You're the one that's got a daughter that's closest, although she's a bit old for it.
yeah.
And your other two are young for it. So, I mean, but I don't know.
I mean, just basing off of her reactions to the shows, like I don't think she's into it. But I mean, so that was Saturday, right? But we're talking about Tuesday's show, and you got Mercurio in similar fashion. I don't know if he's being booked to be ironic or if he's being booked because that's what Billy Corgan thinks of when he says, "Oh, that dude is a sexy guy." Maybe that's what he thinks of. The segment itself is pretty awful.
Hold on, I got to interrupt for one more thing.
Sure.
Old school Devin here.
Yeah.
Who remembers Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant? Okay, who remembers before he was the Boogie Woogie Man and low card Dusty Rhodes that he actually was handsome Jimmy Valiant, especially in Tennessee and stuff like that?
I don't remember that.
And I think WWE. And who remembers that he actually had a wrestling brother? I think it was Johnny Valiant.
The name sounds familiar.
He started as the manager of Brutus Beefcake, I think.
Oh yeah, okay, I remember him then.
And I think when the Dream Team, which was originally Greg Valentine, managed by Jimmy Hart, and Brutus Beefcake, managed by Johnny Valiant, and then Johnny Valiant took over the team over time. Okay, they were the Valiant brothers, and they were Handsome Jimmy and Luscious Johnny. And they had one of the best lines of the time and stuff like that. And Jimmy would go, you know, why is it Handsome Jimmy and Luscious Johnny? It's because I am handsome, but I am not luscious. And he is luscious, but he is not handsome. And it cracked me up so bad. And of course, the Valiant brothers had talent, and they made a good team, and they had some. And Jimmy had some bloody wars with Jerry Lawler. And it was funny. Even after he was Boogie Woogie in Mid Atlantic, he would occasionally make trips back to Memphis, and he was always handsome Jimmy Valiant in Memphis. Didn't matter what even if he was doing the same gimmick. You know, he wasn't Boogie Woogie Boy. He was he was handsome, Jimmy. And
what would Luthez do? Says the first guy I ever saw kiss another guy was Luscious Johnny V.
Yeah, well, mine was Adrian Street. So
okay, so then that takes us to let's finish this segment. I
was hoping you'd forget.
The other asks if he's an author. Well, actually, she says, "Are you a writer?" Which that made me laugh. Like, you can't call the guy an author. And there's more goofy shit. But basically, as it gets toward the end, Mercurio starts talking about touching people inappropriately, and he can't keep his accent. And I don't know if he was just having too much fun on set because they're trying to be silly, but it went from the Italian Mercurio to like, well, then you touch him there, touch him there. It went off the rails, just like this podcast has.
Well, this podcast is much better when we're not talking about the show.
It is, and we're both coughing. We're both dying over here. And then that brings us to the main event, Jack Stane versus Sal the Pal. Now, you guys know how much we revel in our love for Jack Stane, TM. He is the Dane event, TM. He is the Grand Slam champion, TM. He is the face of the NWA that I want to watch. So I love Jack Stane, but this match was the drizzling shits. And I would tell Jax that, and I'm sure he'd probably know that. We get, he has Chris Silvio ringside, which is kind of newer for us. I'm glad that Chris Silvio was there because for the beginning of this new version of Jack Stane, Silvio was only a backstage personality. Sal spends more time petting Jax than actually wrestling. And the reason what I'm saying is because Jax doesn't remove the furry vest that he wears. Not unlike many of his other matches that end quick, he leaves the vest on just so he can, pop the trunk and call it a night. That ends up distracting Sal, who spends a lot of time petting it uncomfortably. It would be like Sal would connect with a move like a drop kick or a clothesline or something of that sort, and then would just start petting the Grand Slam champion, TM. So that was kind of silly, but I guess that's kind of what Sal is at this point. It's just an over-the-top gimmick. Sal seemingly runs away from Jax. Jax is getting frustrated. He can't catch Sal. Sal's just too quick. In the ring, out of the ring, all over the place. He can't connect with Sal until Sal tries to dive on Jax, and that's when things kind of go south for Sal. He smashes him into the ring post. He repeatedly stomps on Sal, so much so that it made me feel like Ronnie Garvin would be proud. Jax finally removes the robe, and as soon as he does that, Sal's able to get some more offense in, and it starts feeling like maybe Sal is going to get an upset victory here. But never fear, my friends, because even after connecting with his 666 finisher, he can't end the match. And Jack Stane pops the trunk and calls it a night, gets the slow cover, 1, 2, 3, match is over, show's over. And nobody got over from watching this.
Remember how you said at a certain point things went south for Sal?
Yeah.
Things went south for me when the match started. I just wanted to.
You can't do that on YouTube. You can't do that. Stop. Filter. That was a fake knife. Fake knife.
It is a fake knife.
It's not
you
a
want me to
real
go get a rolling?
No, please.
So, anyway, it was a bad morning of watching sports entertainment.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is this episode more than any other episode I've heard a lot of outcry from our pal who's normally here with us, James H. Jackson, who I know is watching New Japan right now. He messaged me and said, "Man, this was awful," and he tweeted how bad it was and how he's rethinking his membership. And maybe he won't re-up for next year. And he wasn't the only one to say that. And I don't know if that has any effect on what the NWA will continue to do or not do. You would think it would. You think that they would go to the, hey, well, we want to make our fans happy. But remember, this is booked for one person only.
Well, I mean, ultimately what has to happen I mean, it can't be me or whatever, but if enough people start dropping and the trend starts going down, you know, then at some point, Fight's going to go, hey, you know, as long as Fight's willing to pay them to put on the show, and as long as there's enough diehard people that will watch it no matter what, or we'll watch it so we can make fun of it on the on Thursday nights. And I gotta no, never mind. It's just
no, say it.
I don't enjoy the show at all anymore. I mean, it's reaching the point where even the good is just almost hard to watch because there's just so much bad.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not excited about the pay-per-view in any way, shape, or form. That being said, one of the reasons I don't mind going, other than to see, you know, you and Dave or whoever else shows up, is, you know, they do tend to put on good matches. They don't have all the talking. They, you know, their pay-per-views are normally better than their shows. So, you know, I got my fingers crossed that thing will continue while I'm there. And of course, live in an audience is always different than, you know, trying to watch things on TV. You get a little more into it. You have the crowd energy and stuff like that. So if they have a good crowd, and if they do something like actually put on a World Tag Team title match with Law of Rebellion and Hawks Harry, and, you know, not that I'm dropping any hints.
Well, now that we know that the OGK is with AEW and that they've signed contracts, I think that's the only tag team match they can do.
Well, and it's one they should do considering the vacant thing. Hopefully Mr. Smith, before he left for MLW, mailed back his belt. And since Carl Anderson hasn't mailed his back yet, you know, hopefully.
What another fiasco, huh?
Yeah, the show was only 5 hours longer, but that's an interesting story. All right. Well, I'm probably done.
Yeah,
same here. I was probably done about 20 hours ago.
Yeah, we honestly didn't need to make tonight's episode, but I figure we're going to miss Thanksgiving, so we might as well do something now. So I guess that'll do it for us, guys. I do want to say thanks again for hanging out with us, even though this episode was not our best, but, you know, I figure it was just about as good as what the NWA put out. So you're welcome. Anyways, there is new items in our merch store. A lot of us are getting some cool little coffee mugs. You should get yours too. Dave Scooby points out that the British Invasion are teaming together back in the UK. I wouldn't hate that, except for the fact that the British Invasion, I don't know if we're going to see Doug Williams come back anytime soon. It's got to be expensive to have him fly out here for just a few days of TV taping and on his way back again. So I don't know if that's in the plans, but I wouldn't hate that. I wouldn't hate to see them.
Question: with the way all this is currently being used, do you think there's a possibility they won't re-up at the end of the year?
We should get into that topic next week, but yeah, let's save it for next week because I think that's a great discussion that we could have.
All right, all you people out there watching us, think about it.
I want detailed answers too, and I'm looking at you, Luthez. I'm looking at you. But that's going to do it for us this week. Again, there's new merch in the store. We do appreciate you guys being here each and every Thursday, even when New Japan pay-per-views are running. Hopefully next week will be a lot more fun. Oh, James Bell got his Orange Alliance Wrestling shirt that he's going to wear on Halloween. That's awesome. Love it, man. I'm going to try to put some more new designs up there soon. Trying to have some more fun with it and just, you know, not the traditional just black T-shirt, although that's basically what I wear anyways. But, yeah, we're going to try to get a few more colors in there and hopefully we'll have some more fun stuff coming soon.
Why do I never see Hunter Green? I want Hunter Green.
You got it. I will make a Hunter Green shirt. Do you want a black logo or a red one?
red? How can you even ask that question?
I don't know. It looked like Christmas.
Look like Freddy Krueger. I don't care. Just
all right, guys, we're going to call it a night. Thanks again for hanging out with us. We'll be back next week to do this again. Hopefully we'll have a better show to talk about. You can join me on Tuesday to do the pre-party. Hopefully we'll have some fun things to talk about. And of course, the other Alliance guys will be here on Wednesday night to recap everything that happened on Saturday. Of course, what's going on with the UWN and some fantasy booking stuff. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. James Bell says we need a biker jacket with a 10-pound patch instead of a 1%. You might be onto something. Maybe we'll work on that. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time. Wait, hold on a second. We'll see you next time at the matches. Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are The Alliance.